Welcome to the Ken Hill podcast. Once again, I appreciate you taking the time to tune in. And yeah, you can see me again. I'm recording this again for YouTube as well. And then we'll use the audio for our SoundCloud. So I hope you did like the YouTube, the video part. So kind of fun to do. And I'm recording this podcast. This is the second part. This is podcast 76. And 76, holy smokes. And this is part 2 of our Q&As. So we've had a bunch of people from the Instagram Live give us a bunch of questions. We had a bunch of follow-up questions. We've had other people ask questions. So what we're doing now to hopefully keep you entertained while we're all sheltered in place is answer a bunch of your questions. So this is part 2. And this is we had some really great questions this time. And this podcast, once you get into it, is a little bit longer as well. They're about 30 minutes or so, plus me sitting here blabbing on the intro as well. But some really great questions. So let's dive into it. And this podcast again was with Richard Morris. So you'll see Richard Morris peek in and out of the podcast as well, helping me set it up and throwing me questions that I don't get to see. I don't get to see beforehand. So, all right. Questions that we had for podcast 76 were: do I need to use the rear brake, and can I be awesome without it? And you absolutely can. And so we'll answer that question. And there's also a good previous podcast on that. Podcast 40 goes into pretty good depth with the rear brake as well. The second question is, Ken Hill's favorite bike is. Yeah, that's right. So I fumble my way through that question a little bit because, you'll see when you listen to it. This was a fantastic question. Oh, great question. What makes for a great rider-mechanic relationship? And boy, that can make or break a lot of what happens on race teams. Oh my gosh. So great question. I go into some pretty big depth with that one. And there's 3 podcasts that actually relate back to that one, which is podcast 29, 32, and 73. So you can kind of go back and listen to those. That will give you some more insight on that one. The fourth question is, without data logging or any type of telemetry, how can I identify my biggest weakness? We go into that one as well. Great question. Fantastic question. And one that we're actually really trying to work hard on giving people more access. When you find the answer to that question, and giving more people access to be able to get their writing critiqued in a very short amount of time and very inexpensively as well. So awesome there. Question that we did see a lot of, or a lot of circumstances last year, which was, would moving to a smaller displacement bike accelerate the improvement of my riding precision in my riding advancement? Great question, and we go into pretty big depth on that one. And the last question that we have on that one is, what is Ken Hill's favorite tracks? Fantastic question, and I get to ride a lot of tracks, and I go into depths on that one. So. Yeah, this is a great series of questions, and we still got. I'll probably do a part 3 of the Q&A because we still got a bunch of questions that we haven't answered yet. So there's our intro for podcast 76. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do have questions, you certainly can send them through the Facebook Messenger or Instagram for the track time accounts. So use the track time accounts for Facebook or Instagram, and then you can use the messenger part on there, and I'll get the questions and we'll get them answered for you. So without waiting anymore, here's podcast 76. All right, Ken Hill here, and we are, you can see me again. Isn't that crazy? We've had a lot of people that have liked this experience with being able to have these on YouTube, and you get to see me, so kind of cool. And we're here at the second round, part 2 of our Q&A with me. And if I still got Richard Morris, Richard's here, and he's gonna feed me the questions that I don't really I don't know. I know some of them will come off of our live Instagram. Some of them are other ones that we built up, but yeah, he's going to throw questions at me, and we're going to do just like we did on the last one, and start answering them. So, all right, let's dive right into it. And all right, Richard, here we go. This is the second part of this, and we'll do another 3-4 questions depending on time. So yeah, here we go.
Okay, thanks. Let's just dive in. Like you said, I'm going to go with. Let's go with rear brake. When to use your rear brake?
God, just no foreplay.
Yeah.
Just right.
I want to run 33 minutes again. Let's keep it under 25.
All right. So the question is, when do you use the rear brake, or? Yeah,
well, rear brake in general, that's a pretty common question, okay. I think. And, do you use it? Is it necessary? Can you get away with not using it? Can you be awesome without it?
So this is, rear brake is really an interesting one. And let me just say, let me start it off with this. If there's 1,000 things that we should be working on riding our motorcycle, rear brake is around 994. So there's so many different things that you can be doing on a motorcycle, but the importance of the rear brake as something that enhances the performance is pretty low on the list. Again, so out of 1,000 things, it's around 994. That said, in my experience with working with top-level riders and even newer riders, it ends up being something that is from comfort. So I've had riders that have won Moto America races that use the rear brake everywhere. I mean, they're on the rear brake constantly, and if anything, they're being told to get off the rear brake more. I've had riders also win Moto America races that never use the rear brake. So it ends up being more of a tool that is for comfort, and it also depends on what the situation is. So riders so let's talk about the comfort part. Riders that have grown up using the rear brake, whether it's from motocross, dirt track, or some sort of background that has them using the rear brake a lot, they're comfortable knowing that the rear brake is going to either slow them down or help change direction, or use it as something that enhances grip or even wheeling. So it's more of a comfort thing. I've had riders that are learning how to use the rear brake, and they're learning how to use the rear brake again in specific circumstances. So the answer is the rear brake can be important. The rear brake is sort of at the bottom of the list, but the rear brake is not corner specific, or it is corner specific, meaning different situations may or may not require the rear brake. I've worked with riders that will go to a track and they use the rear brake literally everywhere, right? They're on the rear brake. Go to another track that doesn't call for it, and they barely use the rear brake. So how are they using the rear brake? A lot of them are using the rear brake to help the stability of the front of the bike, because what ends up happening is if you go to the rear brake slightly before the front brake, it controls the pitch of the bike. And so if it controls the pitch to the front, then the front can take a little bit more of a load, and it helps control that. It also can help the bike sometimes if you go to the rear brake slightly before the front, it actually can help control the bike staying in line a little bit more, as it doesn't transfer the weight so much. It also helps quite a bit with the bike wheeling. So especially like maybe on a 600 that doesn't use a lot of electronics, where maybe there's a situation where the front end's light, you can hold some throttle against the rear brake, keeps the bike from wanting to wheelie. So yeah, rear brake is great, but it's at the very sharp end of the sport. Yes, you're going to use it because we're looking for an advantage anywhere and everywhere, but it's also something that is more situational dependent, right? Whether the rear brake's going to help you or not. And it also comes from personal preference.
Question that I have that came up in that answer, at the world stage, is there any truth to dragging the rear brake to tighten up your line, your radius? Is that done?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are times, and even in the US, I mean, there's a couple of tracks where we've messed around with that, sort of longer left-hand corners. That's something that we messed with, like in the carousel at Sonoma. towards the bottom, you can drag a little bit of rear brake, helps suck the bike back in a little bit. So yeah, it absolutely helps tighten up radiuses, but also, they might run the throttle against the rear brake, just help steady the bike, be able to start getting the load developed into the bike. Yeah, there'll be definitely will be a lot of that.
Cool. Let's go to a fun question that I know you love to answer these kind of questions. Ken Hill can have one bike in his stable. What's it going to be?
Okay, but the problem is they're all good. they're all good. And yeah, if I could have only one bike, man. Yeah, I don't know how well to answer that. I'll try to answer that, but it's going to, everybody's going to want to, point me on something, and I'll answer it. It's tough because there's times where every bike that I'm riding that particular day is my favorite bike, just because riding a motorcycle, when you're doing the techniques correct and everything's working well, they're all amazing. It honestly does. I don't care what I ride. It's all fun. One of the top, 5 or 6 times, best time I've ever had on a motorcycle was riding a stock Ninja 400, Feel Like a Pro 400. It was amazing, right? Everything worked absolutely amazing. I've had other days on big modified thousands that have been best days ever. So I think because when we ride so much during the day. We'll ride typically 4 to 5 hours a day. Having something that's a little bit more comfortable works really well. So I would say, gosh, it's such a tough one. Yeah, because one of my favorite bikes. So this runs neck and neck. A Graves R6 is probably one of my favorite bikes. That is right there. Now, Graves built 600 is it's such a good bike. The other one would have to be probably like an upright type of a naked bike. I spend a lot of time on FC10s, FC1s, and I would say that if I had to have only one type of a bike, it would be an upright naked bike, probably a modified FC10 or a Tuono, or I haven't ridden the new Ducati. It's coming out, but I would say that something along those lines.
Great.
Is that
no,
enough?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah,
that's the truth.
They're so much fun. I mean, again, all the bikes are so much fun. But yeah, Graves R6 or Graves ZX6 now. Oh my God, they're so good. They're so good. Absolutely love them. But yeah, I would say a naked upright bike, FC10, modified FC10, Tuono. Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
If you went through a list of tracks, do you think your bike choice would be different? Not asking you to do that, but is that kind of, if you were to say, here, take your favorite bike to the Ridge, take your favorite bike to
it doesn't matter. No? Yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I mean, because they all do different things. I mean, I can go to Portland on an Ninja 400 and have a blast, because you get to play with the draft. Your brain's got time to deal with these things. So yeah, it doesn't matter.
Question number 3. Sorry, I have a whole list in front of me here.
Okay.
Let's go to a racing question. What makes for a great rider-mechanic relationship?
Oh wow. Absolutely fantastic question, and one that I have quite a bit of knowledge with. And a lot of experience with, and this is an incredibly important topic, right? So because there needs to be this trust and confidence in this relationship, and it doesn't mean that the crew chief is not necessarily looking out for the best of the rider, or the rider is looking for the best, but there needs to be this trust and confidence that goes between them. And I would say for both of them, and so it has to be a two-way conversation. And both the rider and the crew chief have to have some of these same permissions Otherwise, they can't have an objective conversation to make the bike better, to make the rider better. And I would say that it starts with both the crew chief and the rider need to have some humility. So they need to gather all of the information that's available and be open to that there's a better way. And we know sometimes it's super easy, right? The bike does this or the rider's doing this and you need to go fix it. That's fine. But they need to be open and be able to say, look, we're looking for a better way. I need to be open for a better way and not have such a closed mind with things. So I'd say the first one is humility. The second one is for both. And again, these are for both. This is a two-way conversation. Is that they need to be open to have feedback. So it's really easy to take things personally. It's really easy for the rider to go, I suck, this is horrible, I shouldn't even be here. But again, being in a position to accept feedback from both the crew chief and the rider, this is a huge deal. So they can't have a conversation objectively if they're essentially taking things personally. So I think that's super important. And I would say one of the other things that we're kind of on that vein is we try to work the equations backwards. In other words, we look at what the best possible scenario is and then say, okay, this is where we need to be. And then this is where we're at. How do we get there? And the reason is like, okay, what are the best in the world? What are the best in the world doing? Or what would the best in the world be doing in this situation? And that goes for whether it's an engine development issue or a suspension development or suspension issue, or even a rider's issue. I'll give you an example is, okay, let's say the rider's saying that the thing has no side grip, okay? So it doesn't have any side grip, and they can then ask the crew chief, okay, I need more side grip, okay? Great, where's our shock setting at? And then that shock setting then can be used to, you can take the shock setting and determine whether it's in a correct envelope for that bike. Is the spring in the right, are using the right weight spring, or use the spring in the right preload range, or is the hydraulics where they're supposed to be? And using an expert, say if it's Oleans or whoever it may be, making sure that that is in the correct envelope. And if it's out of that envelope, then they can make some adjustments. And then the second thing that goes along with that with side grip is making sure the rider's inputs are okay. I've had issues before with riders complaining of side grip, and we found out that their initial throttle is too abrupt. So, of course, we were able to look at it with data. So making sure that we want to compare what we're doing with what the best in the world are doing, because that's what we're striving to do. So I would say that the relationship is a lot of those things that I'm talking about, as well as then being able to communicate in a way that is super clear and concise. And a lot of times your first instinct is right. So to give you a little bit of a process, how we would do it is we would want to get, if the rider comes in from a session, we would want to get their initial inputs, because typically that's a very emotional, the bike sucks, it's doing this, I can't ride it. And then we let them think about it for 30 minutes. And then we get into our proper downloads with the crew chief and the rider. And then they start to actually break it down, and it becomes much more of a technical conversation than an emotional conversation. And then we're able to reconcile it. So yeah, it's an extremely important relationship, but I think it all goes back to those things that I mentioned before, which is needing to have some humility, making sure that they're ready to accept feedback, and then also basing everything off what the best in the world are doing.
Great.
I know it's so much. There's so much to that one. There's
yeah,
so
no,
much.
It's,
I literally could talk about that one for hours. There's so much to it. I mean, our downloads, yeah, I mean, for a 45-minute session, our downloads were typically an hour, hour and a half for a single 45-minute session. And the way that we did is we had a specific sheet of questions that we used about the bike, and then we had a separate sheet that we used for the rider. So we took the download information off the bike, the download information from what the rider's inputs were, and then we reconciled those both together. It's completely fascinating.
How often is the rider and the data kind of lined up, or is the data
No.
there?
It's always lined up. Yeah. So again, it goes back to, I have no side grip, but then when we do their rider download and I ask them how their motor controls are or their focus, typically it's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, their brain's not on that situation. And so typically when we give them a score for, say, motor controls, and the score is low, then we find out that the front of the bike's not moving, or there's an issue with the front of the bike, or we've got a grip issue, or the bike's not turning correctly, or whatever it may be. So yeah, they absolutely parallel each other.
Okay, this question, I guess, that could apply to anybody. You're riding a bike that has no data logging, no aim system, nothing like that, just your bike and yourself, but without telemetry data logging, what is the best way to identify a weakness, or what the rider should be really focused on?
Yeah, right. It becomes a tough one. Basically, how do I know if I'm doing it right? I mean, that's what it boils down to. How do I know I'm doing something correctly? And if we don't have, I don't have full data. And of course I don't have reference laps from, a pro rider or whoever it is. So I don't know. Well, there are absolute ways to be able to do this. And the number one tool that we use for this is video. And when you understand how this sport works, and you understand track dynamics and where the slow point is, and where the right turn-in points are, and where the right body position and body timing are, all of those things become really good report cards. And the first thing that when we have video, is we look at how the bike is the bike placed correctly at the apex? Does it have direction at the right time? Are the right controls being used at the right time for that specific type of corner? Where is the slowest point? We can start to get into all these different report cards. So video is the best way. I mean, we can, regardless of who is riding with us, whether it's a new rider or somebody that is a pro rider, we start with video. And we start with video, and we'll use video up till about 90% of their total training is done with video. And then once we start to get video going correctly, then we'll move off into maybe some base GPS-based data acquisition. And then the last 5% will move into all the controls with data acquisition. But video will take you through the first 90% of your riding, absolutely. So video is the way to go. And then you're able to look at the video, and the video will tell you, when do I have direction? Where's my slowest point of the corner? How much am I coasting? Am I able to add, drive throttle and not give it up? How's my body position? All these different things. So video will tell the story.
Yeah, I think that's a question everybody runs in their mind, track day people especially, myself included. You're riding around there, you feel like you're at your limit of where you are for the day, but you're 15 to 20 seconds off the lap record. And you just wonder, well, where do I suck? Where do I suck the most? Kind of, and how to figure that out.
This is why having the proper fundamentals and understanding the order of the fundamentals. Like, for instance, one of the things that I see quite often is riders will go out and they'll start working on their brake markers first. In other words, I know last year when I was here, when it was 80 degrees out, I could get to the 3 board, whatever the corner is, made up corner. And today, whatever it is, it's, March or April, it's cooler out. My brain's not up to speed, but I'm trying to get to the 3 marker and I can't make it, or I keep rushing my corner or whatever it is. That's literally putting the last thing first. If we start with our exits, and we start to look at how our exits go, and we start to back them up into our entry. I mean, that's the right order of how we're doing this. And of course, it allows your brain time to process all this information as well. So for riders that are looking at these things with video, right, there's a specific order in how we're looking at these things so you can improve, right? If you're 20 seconds off the lap record, but you're on the same bike on the same tires, right? Where is it coming from? Video is the best tool to look at it, and then looking at things in a very specific order is super key.
What's the next one? We got time for maybe two more if they don't go too long. I don't know how to ask this one, but I'll try my best here. It's a bit long. Would a rider benefit from a reduction in CC, so down to a smaller bike, to improve the quality of their riding? So, just to give a context, someone, I'll use myself, I think I'm the common track day rider. I've only ever had a leader bike, only ever ridden leader bikes at the track. Again, one of those, 12 to 15 plus seconds off lap record. Sure. Would I absolutely hate it to go down to a twin cylinder or a 600? Would I miss something, and would I hate myself for it and just not have as much fun?
So here, this is a great question, and this is one that actually we're seeing a lot with. So here it is, 2020. We're sitting here in this. We're all sitting here in our shelter at home, right? Shelter in place, and I would say during the 2019 season, I probably recommended or took off probably 5 of my clients. I took them off big bikes and we put them on smaller bikes. These were newer riders, and trust me, I get it, right? I mean, there's nothing I want more than to run the gears through a BMW 1000 or a V4 or whatever ZX10 up a straightaway. It's the most intoxicating thing in the world. It's also really scary. So I had basically what would happen with every single one of these riders is they would improve fairly quickly, but then when they hard plateaued, they were really stuck. And a lot of it got to be the fact of the bike was overwhelming their brain space. The bike was so fast that their brains literally weren't caught up to the bike, right? So they were riding around, and all of their brain space was centered on how fast the bike was, how much force it was. I don't want a high side, when do I go to the brakes? So all of their brain space was taken up by the speed of the bike and not being able to ride it or work on riding technique. So we'd bring these riders off that bike. We'd put them on a stock 600 couple. We actually had one went on an SV. We had one rider that went to an 899 Ducati off their V4, and it was fantastic. Almost every single time their lap times are better. Well, their lap times are better than they are in the bigger bike, and suddenly it's not as scary and it's not as intimidating. So I think that I'm gonna sort of generalize this. I think that until you're if you're struggling to get within 10 seconds of the, say, lap record for a leader bike, or 10, 12 seconds off that, if you're struggling and you're plateaued at that 15 to 20 seconds, yeah, I do think you benefit from going down to a bike and being able to work some more on the riding technique, because trust me, the value per lap and going to a smaller bike, you'll learn more, you'll be more comfortable, more confident, you'll have more brain space to work on techniques than you will be so overwhelmed with the power or the extra braking force or the extra acceleration force. So yeah, I'd be a big fan of that.
Yeah, I can see that. If just talking to a track that's local to us and probably a lot of people watching / listening at the Ridge, coming out of turn 8 into 9, 10, up that crest, and then kind of working your way into 11 with,
you're on the side of the tire hauling ass.
With 200 horsepower. You definitely want to grab the brakes in a pretty aggressive way getting to the top. I do anyway. I always get passed by a lot of guys.
And then you end up over slowing 11.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, because you're so freaked out right? Your brain is only like, oh my God, because your knee's basically on the ground and you're in third or fourth gear and you're pinned or close to being pinned and you're going. So yeah, your brain is like, holy crap. So yeah, being on, whether it's a Ninja 400 or an R3 or an SV or a 600, your brain has time, right, to be able to say, this is just a lot, a lot. I'm not on sensory overload.
Yes. One more?
Yeah. How are we on time?
We're 22-ish minutes
Great.
in, I think. Let's see. One more fun one that I know you'll love. So list off some of your favorite tracks in North America.
Oh my gosh.
Keep it to 5, maybe.
All of them. Yeah, I don't know. I can find pretty much, I don't care what it is, right? Any track is great. Like my favorite track today would be, Sean and Ryan Cressup's front turn track in their front yard. I mean, I can find something amazing with any track. Again, once you learn to ride correctly, it's just absolutely amazing. But yeah, I would say my all-time favorite track is Road America. It's just absolutely positively intoxicating. It's old school. It's long, and whatever it is, 4-mile track. It has elevation. It seems kind of narrow. It has 3 complete dyno pulls every lap, meaning you're getting into 6th gear 3 times a lap. The trees are whizzing by you. It is just absolutely positively intoxicating. If you enjoy riding a motorcycle, you should go to Road America. That is just, of course, that's my personal opinion. It is absolutely positively worth the experience. So Road America, I would say, is number 1. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, after that, I absolutely enjoy VIR, Mid Ohio, are also pretty epic tracks. Barber's up there. I'm also a huge fan of Area 27. Area 27's on the list for sure. I mean, Area 27's amazing. And I know I'm not going to sit here and make it an infomercial, but we have a school there at some point this year. Well, don't know how that's going to happen with all the crap that's going on, but we have got a school. You can go to Area 27's website and look and see when the school is going to be. It's a members track, so it's hard to get in. It's in the logistics are challenging. It's absolutely worth all of it. It's worth everything to get there and ride it. It is the smoothest, grippiest track I've ever been on, and it's fairly diabolical. So I'm a big fan of Area 27.
That was a question then that I would add to that would be, when you're forced to, and like in this Q&A to answer that question, is the layout of the track weighted higher than, say, the surface? I know, being from Eastern Canada, some of the tracks out there are crap. So you just think of the surface, the tar snakes.
Well, it's part of the experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I spent a lot of time at Chuckwalla, and the bowl in Chuckwalla is probably one of my top 3 corners in America. I mean, yeah, I know I said Road America as a total is more fun, but the bowl at Chuckwalla, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to do another lap to go through the bowl. It is absolutely fantastic.
So I've not been there. What's the bowl like? Is it surface cruddy? Is it just old
No,
school?
Chuckwalla needs some love on the surface. It's not. It definitely has got some challenges with bumps, and basically the track is coming apart. But the layout is super fun. But the bowl is this gigantic banked corner, and depending on which way you're going, the exit is either opening or the exit's decreasing, depending on which direction. But it's super banked, and you can just, every time that you go through there, you went, oh crap, I could have gone faster. Ah, crap, I could have gone faster, because the camber just absolutely helps you get in there. Absolutely intoxicating corner. And there, again, there's just other corners that, and there are other individual corners, right? I just spent some time at Laguna, and yeah, the corkscrew is pretty damn cool. The rest of the track, honestly, is okay. But yeah, the corkscrew, getting the timing right and feeling the whole bike become weightless, absolutely a fun set of corners.
So everybody's fascination with putting Laguna on the bucket list is probably because we've all played it in a video game rather than it actually being one of the best tracks in the States.
The track is, I mean, it's fun. Don't get me wrong. It is super, super fun. But yeah, as a total, I mean, it's okay. It's the corkscrew though definitely makes up for it, just because of the way, when you get the timing right of coming there on the brake and then moving your body at the right time, the way the bike becomes weightless, and then you time it with the throttle, it is, yeah, that corner makes up for whatever the rest of the track, you know, might not be as exciting with. But yeah, it is definitely really fun. Another great track that is worth an honorable mention is High Plains in Colorado. That is another epic track. Super, super fun track as well.
That's 30.
Is it really? God, I talk a lot.
I think so.
Yeah. All right. Well, then let's wrap that. Let's wrap this one up. And yeah, I mean, of course, this is just part two. This is probably going to end up being like what, 3 or 4 parts?
Yeah, I think so. We can put another call out for more questions on Track Time Ken Hill Facebook page and Instagram. So we'll try to keep them coming in. And
yeah, yeah, that's fine. Let's close with this then, which is, yeah, if you have questions, if you have more questions, you can submit them to the Track Time Instagram page, Track Time Facebook page. Send them through there, and we can add them to our ever-growing list of questions. And I know I said it in the last podcast that we had here, but yeah, use this time to improve. There's so many things that you can do off the bike. It's just absolutely amazing. I mean, I went for my bicycle ride today. I did my PT stuff today. I'm going to do my little some of my mental fitness stuff, my mindfulness training this afternoon. There's so many different things that you can be working on for when the season does open up, and the season is going to open up, and we are going to be riding a lot. So yeah, hang in there, and yeah, we're going to make it happen.